Well, hello. Welcome to my review on Wonder Woman 1984. I hope you're all having a wonderful day, whoever might be listening in to these videos that I'm making. I'm actually getting better at kind of creating like the scenes like for the thumbnails and then for this. There's still a long way to go, but we're going, we're learning and I'm trying to get this all together. For Wonder Woman 1984, I'll say as an overall conclusion that it is enjoyable. I enjoyed the movie. I still prefer the first Wonder Woman movie by Gal Gadot, but this is not bad. From from the couple of reviews that I've seen, the take is that they didn't like it and whatnot. It's not that bad to me. And kind of the reason, or one of the strongest reasons that I kind of like this movie, is that very much similar to the first movie. You have the ending where I think his name is Rogers or Steve. Steve, that's the name. Where Steve he gives his life, and before he goes on the plane, where he's going to take away that lethal weapon away from everybody else, is by saying, "I can save today. You can save tomorrow." Or excuse me, he said, "I can save today. You can save the world." And it's a very powerful scene because he knows that there's no other way. That the way to save as much lives as possible is that he, as a simple man, without any of the superpowers, the super strength, the speed, the only thing he can do is give up his life, so that she may be able to do what she is destined to do, save the world. And that kind of same thing happens over here. I'm not going to go play by play, but overall, if we had to skim the whole plot of the movie, it's been quite some time after the events of the first movie. I believe it's in the 80s or 70s. No, 80s because it's 1984. Duh. Okay. So, so you have that. It's been some time since the events happened, and she still remembers, obviously. What is a little bit weird to me, as kind of a side note, is that she, when we look at how she is doing, where she works, she's well off. I mean, she has a huge house, basically a mansion. She has her uh, collection of antiques from ancient civilizations. She has a good job over at a major museum. I'm not really sure if it was like Washington D.C. or what type of city it was. I don't remember now, but she got a good paying job, a good house. Everybody loves her. I mean, she's doing great. And not only that, but in the also as part of the beginning sequence, you see her coming in as the superhero that's already been set. You know, that she comes in, saves the day, stops the robbers, and everybody's in awe, like, wow, she's powerful. Now, when we look at what she does, or better yet, as we continue on, uh, we see that she's still very much suffering from the effects, from having had to survive Steve. She still misses him so much, and she is on the point of she isolates herself, and she isolates herself to not, because she doesn't feel that she can make any new connections, because Steve was everything to her. She, as a person who doesn't belong in our world, she's from this ancient world protected by magic. Steve was the only thing familiar to her, and when he sacrificed himself, she was left with nothing. So how does this happen, or what happens after there? Better yet, well, uh, you see that she's working at the museum, and there's a colleague as well. She uh, starts. She basically gets the plot of the story involves this other colleague, in part, as she receives from the FBI this package of alleged stolen antiques, and they just went to verify with her if they were the real thing. Well, as you can imagine, plot twist: not all the antiques are antiques, but the very important artifact that's within the collection is actually the most dangerous artifact that they could have. It's basically a magic lamp, but instead of rubbing the lamp, getting three wishes, here you only have one wish, and it's a stone. So you touch the stone. Think you have to kind of read the inscriptions, but anyways, you ask for one wish, and that's all you get. Of course, there's that caveat in which you get what you wish for, but something else is taken. So yes, you something is given to you, but then something equally as important gets taken away. Now, you could always obviously guess where this is going. Uh, if there's any wish that uh, Gal Gadot, Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman would have, is, well, she wants Steve Rogers to be alive again, and that's where everything in, well, not comedic necessarily, but that's where everything kind of comes down. Again, this is kind of like a spoiler free as possible, but take of it as you will. So Steve Rogers, is Steve Rogers or is just Steve? Anyways, he comes back, and the way he comes back is that he gets into the body of the stranger. He is in the body of a stranger who has their own life, their own family, their own job, etc. And this is part of where one of the things I didn't really understand. The first one being, well, since when did Gal Gadot become like this ultra rich person? Uh, we also have, well, if you're living in a city, no matter how big it is, you're bound you're bound to be recognized by some people, either by neighbors or by friends, co-workers that see you out in the street. However, that was not the case. It conveniently throughout the whole movie, even when Steve Rogers in the body of this person, right? Gal Gadot, she sees him as Steve, but to everybody else, he is this random face, this random stranger. But funny enough, he is never recognized, or there's never that situation where, oh, hey, you're so and so. Um, Say what? Who am I? That type of thing. There was never that confusion of somebody recognizing the stranger, and that's the thing. There is this situation where he is in the body of a stranger, but nobody recognizes him. That could have created some, uh, you could say, interesting situations. But conveniently, the stranger didn't have a family. The stranger wasn't apparently known to the neighbors, so there was no risk of being recognized. That was like a very convenient plot device, but that's okay. It doesn't take away from the movie itself. It's just a minor thing that I noticed. Now, if we are talking about Gal Gadot, we also have to talk about the other character, the supporting character, who you might recognize from SNL, Kristen Wiig. And when I was seeing this, I couldn't help but feel the way that I felt was as I was watching the movie. I couldn't help but feeling or thinking, better yet, thinking on the movie Catwoman, one of the old Batman movies, where the character she is this nerdy, nobody looks at her, she's alone, uh, she has a lot of cats, but other than that, uh, nobody pays her too much attention. She's kind of very. She's not noticeable. She's basically a fly on the wall. No, not a fly on the wall. A wallpaper. I think that's the expression. She's basically a wallpaper. The same thing with Kristen Wiig's character. Even though she has a PhD and she is respected, but when people see her and meet her, that's where they go, "Oh, okay, that's who you are." Okay, so she doesn't get that respect, that kind of infatuation that Gal Gadot has. Everybody's fawning over her, but with Kristen Wiig, basically they even ignore her very existence. And so in the movie, of course, she goes through a similar transformation, except that, well, in Catwoman, it's kind of like more spontaneous, but over here, she has a wish: be strong and be like Gal Gadot with her grace and all of that. Not knowing that she was Wonder Woman, but just overall, like she wants to be as graceful, as beautiful, powerful as her. Well, that's where things take a turn for her character. Because again, when you make a wish on the stone, you get what you wish for, but something else is taken away. And in this case, what was taken away from her was a key aspect of her personality, which is her warmness. She's a very kind person. Well, by giving her powers, now she's not as nice of a person. The same thing with Gal Gadot, and I believe this was done very well. When Gal Gadot's character wishes for Steve to come back to life, which is very important to her, another thing is taken away from her, which is equally or even more important, which is her abilities, her strength, her um, endurance. She becomes weaker and weaker and weaker. When you ask, well, what do you get from there? That's where they implement this really strange. I say strange because I've never seen this happen in anywhere else. But in in this case, they can give up their wish. So in a way, they can say, you know what, I take it back. Give me back what's mine, and take away the wish. And that's an interesting concept. I've never seen that happen. It's novel to me. It does create this fascination, and that creates a very interesting situation because with her giving up her wish would mean Steve is again dead, no longer with her. She's giving up, she has to give up her love, her one thing that she has in her life, the most important thing. And when you see that scene, I believe it is equally as powerful as the first movie where he's about to get on the plane and he's telling her, I will save today, you save the world. And they mirror that same scene, but now instead of getting on the plane, it's basically, you have to give me up because you need to save the world. Because the villain, and that's kind of like another thing that I found interesting as well, is that the villain instead of wishing for, well, they didn't say you couldn't, but normally if you were asked, well, what do you want to do? What wish would you want? You jokingly say, oh, I want more wishes. The villain, he made this interesting choice of saying, I want to be the stone that grants wishes. Because he can grant the wishes and take away something from people instead of something being taken from him. And has a unlimited source of wishes, basically. You pair that up with the type of person this villain is, and that is, he is a manipulator. He's a salesman. So, if you pair that, him becoming the stone, with his um, thing of being a salesman, you have a good recipe for he can get whatever he wants because he can get the people to ask his wishes for him and not suffer the consequences. Well, that's not necessarily true because as time goes on, it seems like the stone does take away. It puts a great strain on his body, so he has to keep on getting wishes so that he can take away, the other people's health and others people's life force and vitality, that sort of thing. That's what I think Wonder Woman 1984 did well. It did implement, even though it has choices which are kind of weird and a couple of things that I don't really understand, that seemed like too convenient. They did implement a couple of things that are not usually seen. I can probably gripe about the choice of music, which is not very contemporary to that time, or um, the development of Kristen Wiig's character into like this jaguar, cat, woman type of thing. I mean, I can, or how the villain's son, which I didn't mention at all because he wasn't really relevant, even though he's in several scenes. They could have done away with that character, but that's I could go on with a couple of things like this. But the fact of the matter is, Wonder Woman 1984 is a good film. I still prefer the first movie, but this wasn't half bad. If you want to see it, I strongly, well, not strongly, but I would say yes, of course. Watch the movie, enjoy it for what it is, try to not overthink it. It is what I would describe a Sunday type of movie, um, where in the times before, the streaming services, Sundays you would usually get the movies that they're not great. They're not necessarily primetime movies, but hey, they're good enough to enjoy. To sit down for an hour and a half or an hour and 40 minutes and watch it. All right. If anybody is watching this review, I hope you enjoyed it. I know my takes are not very controversial or I'm not saying anything like too, wow, like very film critically, but hey, not a film critic. I enjoy what I enjoy. What I don't, I don't. So, you tell me. If you're watching this, you tell me what did you think of the movie? Did you like it? Did you hate it? Um, did you think the other reviews are fair to the movie? Who knows? All right. So, take care. Talk to you soon.